Hello, all of our listeners. Welcome back to another episode of the Practical Performance Podcast, proudly brought to you by Valere, which is your source for all things strength training, injury resilience, performance. It's your go-to place for all endurance athletes. And we have a bit of a special little episode today. It's our Christmas and New Year episode where we're going to reflect on our views on a lot of our races, training, and all things to do with endurance to help improve our 2025. So Nick and Joey, how are you both?
I'm good, thanks, Kate. Well, sorry.
I see next to you, so I
Yeah.
don't really need to ask you. Joey, how are you?
Nick's great. He's dying, aren't you, in the heat out there?
Always. I'm not sure I'm built for this, really.
Another day in Seychelles.
Yeah, you'd be a bit like when you said, "Are you all right?" If he's like, "Yeah, I'm good," but the company's not great, wouldn't you? You'd have been like, "Oh, what?"
Could you imagine? He's like, "I'm good, but geez, have you met my wife? She's a bit annoying."
I don't think that'd go down so well.
Podcast ends there.
Yeah. No, I'm good.
I'm great. How are you getting on over in the UK, Joe? Winter treating you all right still?
Yeah, it's good. I'm in Cromer at the moment, so like a seaside resort. It's about 45 minutes from Norwich. So staying up there for Christmas, and our first night last night, there was a huge storm. But I quite like it. You probably get some quite big storms in the Seychelles, I bet. But it's obviously not freezing cold when it's there. But I like sitting inside when it's nice and warm, and you can hear the wind and everything and see it outside. So, and then obviously today now it's like blue skies, which is quite nice, especially at this time of the year. You got to take that whenever you can get it, like over here. But yeah, it's good.
That actually sounds amazing, I must say.
And the best thing is as well, like I've managed to like get my training all sorted. So I've been doing like 3 weeks of good training, and then 1 week like a lot easier. And it's managed to fall with the easy week over Christmas and New Year, or over the Christmas period, like Christmas Eve, Christmas. So I think that's like spot on, isn't it? When that happens, not from good planning or anything as well, just pure like coincidence. So
more luck than judgment.
More luck than judgment.
Well, that was kind of like us. We actually did a sneaky marathon as you do. Where I know that we'd always said we were doing Dubai, but we did Abu Dhabi Marathon not last weekend, the weekend before. And so now in my mind, I've kind of tapped out and I can just enjoy Christmas a little bit more now. So it's good timing. That's not why we picked it, but it is, well, in my mind. You're not doing that so much. You're back into training.
Let's go. So going into Abu Dhabi, let's tell listeners a bit about that. So you were forced into doing that really because you wanted to try and get into London Marathon, didn't you? And unfortunately, you can't get a good for age time there, can you? Because you're not a British citizen, is that right? Or can you get a good for age?
That's right. I mean, look, no one forced me to do it. I very happily booked that plane ticket and went. But yes, the goal was I really wanted to qualify for London. And because I'm not a UK citizen, I don't qualify for the good for time age. So the good for time age for my age category is a sub 340. So I wouldn't qualify with that. So the only way as an international citizen of doing it is to get a championship entry. And even then I still have to join a UK athletics club and like participate in some way in athletics in the UK. But
what club did you join then?
I was going to join a Cardiff one near Nick's home and go and
you could have joined City and Norwich.
It was Bridget. No, it was Cowbridge. It was a Cowbridge one. I'd emailed them because I thought, well, we're going to go there and I'll go join in some of their sessions. I had it all in my head, Joe. I was all ready to go.
Yeah.
And anyway, I didn't make my time. So,
but the championship times are hard, aren't they? Like for people who don't know, you're literally like my friends have raced in the championship one before, and you're like he was on the TV coverage standing there just behind Mo Farah because they line the elites up, don't they? And in the championship, you're literally the next people back in the same shot are the guys in the championship. So they do make the times tough, don't they? Like, I think, what is it for the men? 2:38, 2:36, something like that?
36, yeah.
So, like,
I really thought I had it in the bag, though. Like, up till 34, 35K, I thought I had it in the bag. I really did. I was like, I felt amazing. I felt so good. I was sitting a couple of seconds per K under, which was always the plan. And then I felt amazing until I didn't, and then I just
So did you lose like a few minutes in the last like 5K then?
Yes. And also I think my Garmin lost a little bit of signal in the buildings. So when I went through 42.2K on my watch, it said 3:10:38. And I was like, where's the finish line?
Well, it came up like a K. I saw on your Strava thing, it came up as over a K long, didn't it? You were like 43 point something kilometers.
Yeah, I don't think it was long. I think it was my Garmin, though.
Just
Look,
with all the tall buildings.
long, but I don't think it was. I don't
Wow.
know, but either way, I didn't make my time. I did a 3:16, so it sounds like I was way off it. But I felt in my race execution, I was closer to that than what my result actually shows. I do
Was
feel
it
like.
hot for the race as well?
Do you know, it really wasn't that bad.
I mean, it's an interesting one. Like, to us, it felt really, really good. I think I haven't confirmed or
20?
checked. It would have been give or take 20 degrees.
20, so that's not ideal then for a marathon,
No, on
is it?
paper
Like,
that's hot, isn't it? Well, it's certainly warm.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
relative to Seychelles, the humidity was a lot
Nice.
lower, and obviously the temperature
Yeah.
was lower. So to us, it felt really nice.
but that's still going to affect your performance, though, isn't it? Like, if you race it in like 10 degrees, 12 degrees, it's going to be
Yes.
much nicer, isn't it? And you're going to, like, especially when you get to that last 10, 15K, because you probably lost so much in sweat. And do you
Yeah.
find it hard to get the fluids in the marathon because they give you like small cups and stuff like that, and you're only getting like a few swigs at a time?
They gave us full drink bottles. The only annoying
Did
thing
they?
was the lids were still on, so that was, a little bit inconvenient. But we
Yeah.
had full drink bottles, like 300 ml drink bottles, which was amazing.
Oh, really?
And I must
That's good
say,
then.
this whole race, like if anyone wants to race in the Middle East, Abu Dhabi Marathon was fantastic. It was really, really good.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was incredible. But I just held on to the exact pace I wanted till 35, and then I just couldn't hold it anymore. But I still felt I nailed my nutrition, which was really good. Nailed the hydration. I felt really strong. Like my legs, I feel like everything felt really good. I just couldn't stay on top of that pace. Like
How many grams of carbs did you have an hour or whatever, or did you like how many gels? What did you go for?
I was low. Well, see, if I had said this 10 years ago, it would have been perfectly normal. Well, when I did my Ironman, this grams of carbs per hour would have been normal for my size, but now it would be counted low. So I took in 46 grams of carbs per hour.
All right. Do you reckon that's why you faded then towards the end?
I don't know, because more than that, I just don't know if I would have a lot more. I ate a lot. I did a lot of carb loading the 2 days up to it. I ate a really good race breakfast. I had a lot of carbs race morning, and I feel like for 3 hours, like, do I need
But it's
more
3
than that?
intense hours though, isn't it? It's like intense,
Yes.
isn't it? Because it's basically like a max 3 hours, isn't it? Because you're giving it everything for 3 hours 10. Like,
I would definitely play around with it, but I think just around 56.5 kilos on race day. So I definitely on the lower end, but I don't know. I'm going to play around with it for the next one, but I must say it sat perfectly in my tummy. Like, I felt so good. Like that side of it was really good. There were lots of really good
which is
things.
interesting because you said like last 5, 6K was when you started to fade and you felt really good up until then. And that's normally what happens when you start running low on energy, isn't it? Like, I remember when I was younger on the bike, I used to feel really good on like when I was like 13, 14. So I was going out on like the train rides with the adults, and back then people weren't even taking gels. It was like peanut butter sandwiches and stuff. And
Yeah.
like my mum and dad used to make the sandwiches, and you'd feel good until all of a sudden you didn't feel good, and then you were like, oh shit, like I've got nothing. And then sometimes you were like struggling to get home. But it's weird, isn't it? It's like once it goes, it just like it's like 5 minutes before you felt really good and your legs still feel good and everything, but it's like your heart rate just starts going up higher and the pace just goes out of it massively, and you're just like, I can't go any faster, but I don't know what's going on. Like, I don't feel like my legs don't feel beaten up or anything, and I felt fine.
Yeah.
But then there's no comeback, is there, when you feel like that?
And then you're just gone. You
I
should
guess.
see my heart rate data. If you go on my Strava, Joe, I'll pop this up on the YouTube. My heart rate is like perfectly stable, and then it literally just goes boom in like the space of a couple of minutes.
I reckon that's the lack of carbs, because I reckon your heart rate's gone up higher because your body's trying to break down fat as the fuel. And obviously it's harder to break down fat, isn't it? Like, the 9 calories per gram instead of 4 and a bit. So your heart's increasing trying to get more oxygen to break down the fat so you can go at the same intensity. And I reckon that's the typical signs that you'd get if someone that's like run through all their carbs.
Just fading.
I reckon, just fading. I reckon you need a couple more gels, a couple of Mortons.
When we come to the UK to do our marathon and our racing next year, then I'll work on it between now and then, and hopefully I'll have some cooler conditions and some more carbs, and then I'm going to get as close to 3 hours as I can.
The thing, it's hard to know how many carbs you need for it, because you never do a 3 hour 10 effort in training flat out. Well, no one does, do they? Do you know what I mean? Like if you're even if you're like say 2.5 hours, 2 hours 20, you're not doing. The only time you're ever doing that is on race day, isn't it? So if you run 3 hours steady, 47 grams of carbs is probably more
Yeah.
than enough, because you're burning a lot more fat rather than like a high percentage of carbs, aren't you? So it's hard to get the experience to really know. And the same if you're doing a 3 hour bike ride. If you're just cruising a 3 hour bike ride, even doing a few efforts, 47 grams of carbs, especially at your weight, is a decent amount. Like you're going to get through that. But when you go and like max effort, you don't get many opportunities to try that, do you? So I would say like next time we're in training, if you can like take like 60 or 70 grams, like that would be a huge benefit. I actually got some gels the other day from a company that has 50 grams of carbs in the gel, and
So
they're not.
I need
So
to
you
get
don't have to carry. Yeah, I'm going to use them for. I'm actually doing a marathon on the 29th of December.
Oh, you found one. What is it? Which one is it?
Yeah, tell us.
Yeah, it was called the Chase Gibbig Backyard Marathon, basically. There's literally
Is
me and Techno and a few others.
certified? Is that?
Yeah, it's not certified. It's just for a bit of fun, because I actually I actually want to do one anyway. And if it was certified, that would be awesome if I could use it. But basically, we're going to use the loop what I've got, and I thought if you want to try and break 2 hours 30, in an Ironman, or certainly get close to that, it'd be interesting to see how hard is it to go under. How hard does it feel beforehand? And I did something similar to this back in 2021, like December 2021, going into 2022 season. I ran 50k from my house to my parents' house, which was something that I'd always wanted to do. And that was really good. And it felt like it kind of made me like really set me up, for some racing that came after that. So I thought, I'll go for 3:30 kilometer pace, which was like around 2:27 for a marathon. And if that feels good, then it won't smash you because you're not doing a flat out marathon. But also, if you want to be running like low 2:30s or getting close to under 2:30 in an Ironman, then 2:27 should feel fairly comfortable, shouldn't it? Like if it doesn't, then you're nowhere near that. And I've been running quite well in training, and I really fancy doing one. So I'm going to do one with Techno on the 29th. Conditions are great for it. 6, 7 degrees, low winds, round a little loop. Wouldn't it be good if you could actually do something like that, where you could like measure it up, they could verify it as like an accurate distance, and you could use it for some kind of like qualifying time or something. Do you know what I mean? Like you could have come over, Kate, and had another shot.
I know, another pacemakers.
Yeah.
No, but what you're saying though is like, it's so true. And I think that's why I like don't feel super devastated that I didn't meet the time. I was initially when I crossed the finish line, I was so devastated, but I was like, I was like, I got to learn from it. It was my first standalone marathon. I learned heaps from it. And now I'm like, that's okay. I'll go back and work on all those things in training, and then be better for the next one, the better for the next one. If this is my worst marathon result, hopefully, then I'm okay with the 3:16 being my slowest marathon. It's okay.
The best thing you can do with the carbs, they say, is take as many as your body can handle, because obviously like you're going to go through your glycogen stores after about an hour and a half, tops probably, if you're working really hard. So the more you've got, the better. But obviously you don't want too many that it makes you like have stomach problems or feel sick or anything like that. But if you can handle more, then you want to go for more. But obviously if you can't handle any more, and like 40 something 50 grams is all you can handle, then that's all you can do, and you've just got to hope for the best. But if you can take on 60 or 70 grams, there's not going to be a negative. There's not going to be any negative as long as you can absorb it and use it. But those gels that I was telling you about are really good, because you could take like 3, 4 of them. They don't take up too much extra space, 2 in each pocket. If you get like, I've got some run shorts where they have like pockets to your phones, but you could easily put 2 of them in each one, and that would be like 200 grams of carbs. So if you're around 3 hours, that's going to be like getting on for 70 grams, or you can do the whole lot of that. So I would, give them a go. They taste quite nice as well, which is the main thing.
Oh, good. I will definitely give it a go. This one over here, Nick, can have a huge amount of calories and carbs when you run. I don't know how you do it.
Oh, when I run. I thought you just meant in general.
Oh, in general too, most definitely. But I have to train myself up to tolerate a lot better, but Nick is on it. But well, I know how your race went, Nick, but how did your race go?
Yeah, it wasn't my best day, unfortunately. So I went out hoping, and hope's probably the best word and not the best word at the same time, hoping to kind of be in and around that 2:25 kind of time, which is about 3:27, 3:26 maybe per K. And I went out on a race morning and I hit about 3:31 for every single K for, I don't know, 10, 12 Ks or so. And I just felt like I was totally redlining. From like the second K onwards, my heart rate was already kind of where I'd expect it to be on the back half of the marathon. And yeah, I was just finding it really hard. I was probably kind of in that place from kind of 5K onwards where you hope you're not going to be until 30 plus K. So for me, it kind of started to slow down from the back half onwards. I think I went through halfway averaging 3:32s, and then really kind of just started to lose it maybe around like 25 to 30 Ks or so. And yeah, just really kind of felt my pace come down to about 3:45s and then to 3:50s. And pretty soon I was kind of just almost walking, and then I wasn't walking. So yeah, I didn't have the day that I was hoping to. But I think that was a reflection of probably just trying to be too, almost kind of what's the saying? Trying to checks your body can't handle.
Truthfully, your ego's right and fixed. Your body can't catch.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I was probably shooting for something that was a bit beyond where I was at, but I was happy to do that. Like that was always the goal. And yeah, came away obviously it was a pretty disappointing day, but it's always a good experience. Like I definitely learned a few things that I think will be able to apply to the next one. So hopefully not a terrible day in that regard.
Do you think some of that is to do with what Glenn said, where like, you know, if you're training in the heat and stuff, it doesn't necessarily help you with like cooler conditions, because like aerobically, like you might have been okay, so like your legs weren't used to running that speed. You weren't getting because it's so hard, you know, running that faster speeds in the Seychelles. Yeah, like I guess if you're doing like mile reps and like hard Ks, like if you're trying to do quite a few of them, running fast, like quite a bit faster than marathon pace, is just so hard because you just get so hot and like sweaty and anything like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Like,
I mean, like for context, I've pulled up so badly from this, and I only ran, you know, hard for kind of 25 Ks or so, and then wasn't running that hard for the next 10 Ks until I started walking. And I have pulled up really, really sore. Like for a solid 5 Ks, my quads were battered after the race. And like, obviously it's a marathon and you're going to pull up sore. Like, a given, but I was surprised how sore my legs were. And I felt like maybe, I wasn't conditioned like for that pace on the road. Like you said, the training that we've done out here has been so much slower because of the conditions. Going to those cooler conditions and then running faster, like it was definitely something that my body struggled with, and like more so than I probably anticipated.
I think we're both ready for a little UK stint. Some fast races.
I think that is the good thing about the UK at this time of the year. Like, you know, from like October, I think, to March, April for running, it's absolutely perfect conditions, like temperature wise. Like, you know, I can do like tempos, thresholds, speed work, and I never have to worry about getting too hot. And so you can always like get the quality in. You know, like, because even in the summer, I find it quite hard. Like when it's like July or August and it's absolutely boiling, like when I'm down the track, it is so much harder doing the hard sessions, like when it's like 30 degrees. So I definitely think it helps a lot, like getting the good sessions in during the winter. And I found that when I was actually in America and I went to Tucson and trained a lot this winter, like when we were there in February, March. Well, no, it was March we were there, leading into Ironman Texas in April. So actually it was April. The whole of April we were in Tucson, so it was starting to get quite warm by the end, like 35 degrees, and it made it quite hard trying to get your sessions in, because you'd want to do like some longer runs and longer runs, but you know, if you're doing 25k and it's quite getting quite fast towards the end, it takes so much more out of you, you know, whereas like I did 20k yesterday running and I didn't need to take a drink or anything, you know, with me, because you're not really sweating that much, you know. So I think it might not be as nice as training in 20 degrees, but in terms of how much it takes out of you and the quality of the training, it's really good for the training.
So I feel like overall with our, you know, Nick and I's marathon attempts and Joe, your season this year, I think this 2024 is probably a year of learning for us three, I think. What about you, Joe? What have you kind of taken out of this year and how are you going to reflect on that? Because you're self-coached, obviously. Like, how do you evaluate your races and go, okay, this is my strengths, weaknesses, this is what I got to work on? Like, tell us and all the listeners, like, What goes on in your head? How do you improve? How do you know what to work on? What are
So
you working on?
I'll break it down through like each sport and just start off with a bit like the swimming, then go on to the bike, and then go on to the running.
Mm.
Swimming, like in the pool this year, I was hitting the best times I've ever hit at some points, but I was doing like virtually no open water swimming, partly because one of my friends put me off, and he said that one of the lakes or rivers that we were swimming in, he said that they were dumping sewage into it. And I thought that sounds absolutely rank, so I'm not going to swim in there. I don't
Yeah.
know if that was like pure or not, but when they say sewage, I don't think they just necessarily mean like shit in the toilets. Like they might mean like, like rainwater or something like that, when
Is
they've
this
got it
one of
off
your
the field.
competitors, Joe? Was someone trying to sabotage your performance this
It was
season?
Andrew.
I was going to say, is this Andrew?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, because I had that, like I used to swim there all the time because it was like 10 minutes away from my house. And there's like an island loop where we swim around this island. There's 2K. So it was really good. You could do like 2 loops and you get like 4K, and the time always went pretty quick, and you could break it up because you could like swim down to a bridge, which was like 700 meters one direction, 300 meters if you went the opposite way to the other bridge. So you could always do like 2K loops. You could do like 1K down the back straight, 700, 300, all kinds of things like that. And then you get a few of us that do it. But then when I had that, it really put me off. So I wasn't swimming there. And then I was just swimming in the pool. But obviously, it just shows that there's so much to it, because when I went on a training camp with Tom, I was there for like 2.5 weeks, 2.5, 3 weeks, I think. And I only swam in the pool once or twice in 3 weeks. Just swam open water every other time. And then I ended up swimming the course of like the Zelamshi race course the day before, like they had a race on it, because I was just out there and with some like sponsors and stuff and watching them do it, and I took part in the relay, but I wasn't doing the proper thing, and I was swimming really well in open water, and that made me think. And then Tom obviously went and swam really well, but where his swim was at in Challenger I'm in, it made me realise that there's so much to swimming in open water that you can't necessarily replicate in the pool. And it's weird because you don't, sometimes even just swimming easy in open water, you don't really think it's doing anything, but it shows that you do actually improve from swimming in open water. So I definitely need to make sure that I get open water swims in regularly during the season, once, twice a week, something like that, and make more of an effort, because there are other places that I can swim open water. It just obviously takes a bit longer to drive there. So I was thinking in my head, oh, what's the point of driving, 20, 25 minutes to get to a place from open water when I can get to the pool in like 5 minutes, something like that. But obviously, I think it's pretty clear that you need to make more of an effort, and I need to get in the open water when I can, because for me, that makes a massive difference. And that might not be the same for everyone else, but that's one thing that I've learned, is that I definitely need to get into the open water if I want to swim well in open water rated.
It's
So,
really interesting, Joe, you say that, because when I was leading up to Roto Solo, do you remember you and I went for that big swim together in the ocean?
yeah,
And I think I
yeah,
took you for a 13K open water swim, and it just wrecked you. But because I
yeah,
was it, I was totally fine, and I could hang on to your feet. And even one of my friends was doing all his swimming in the pool, and he was so much faster than me in the pool. And then come
yeah.
race day, like my time, I think was like 45 minutes faster than him over 20K. And it was because I had just done all the open water swimming. I did, I think, 5 swims a week open water, and then the rest was in the pool. And I was doing more open water than any of my friends I knew, and I had the best race by a
Yeah.
mile.
So it's weird how it works, because it just seems so simple, like that swimming in the pool is the same as swimming in open water. And even when you get at like a really calm day in open water, it's still not the same, because that 12K that we did in open water that day was really calm. There was like no swell, was there, or anything. It was like a big pool, wasn't it? But that took the most out of me, I think, out of any sporting thing I think I've ever done. Like,
Because you
I felt,
were going to do the solo with me, and then you were like, absolutely not. And after that,
yeah, it just felt just
you.
so fatigued. Like it took more out of me than a 12-hour bike ride. It took more out of me than an Ironman. I ran that 50K that I said to my parents' house, and that took way less out of me. I was fine enough, like 2 or 3 days doing that. Like that, but I was feeling that for about 9, 10 days afterwards. Like I just felt drained, like even in everything, like running, biking, like I just felt so sapped after that, even though we weren't even swimming it that hard. It was just obviously because I wasn't used to it. I just felt destroyed.
What was worse, Joe, between that and High Rocks in terms of recovering?
High rocks was obviously like loads of muscle soreness, but it
Yeah.
wasn't, but my body didn't really feel fatigue, but muscle soreness, like waist upwards, I was totally smashed, like really, really bad DOM. Whereas that didn't really have any DOM, but I just felt so
Right.
fatigued afterwards. Just like physically fatigued. Like I just didn't have the energy like to do stuff. So I would say it was different, but that swim, like, because it was a horrible sense of fatigue. Do you know what I mean? Like with the DOMs, at least you're like, oh, well, I must have pushed myself hard, and you don't mind it so much if your muscles are sore. But when you actually feel like really flat and like a deep sense of fatigue, it's
Mhm.
pretty grim, isn't it? Because you're like, oh God, like you don't really want to feel that, do you? So yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say that the biking, and then going on to the biking, I would say what I want to do is, so I've been to the wind tunnel already this year, like, well, this winter. So going into that 25 season, I'm starting off with position wise. I think there's so much now about people going more arrows, and you can see a lot of people are getting into these positions that they can't really hold the power suffering that they put out, and that has such a negative impact on your performance. But probably towards how you run as well. So I've actually gone for a slightly less aerodynamic position going into next year, but it's a lot more comfortable and a lot more faster. And it's going back to the kind of position that I was riding 2021, 2022, where I was riding really well and I was able to put out decent power in it. And looking at the data, to me, it just makes sense. You know, I feel like I can put out a lot more power in that position. And although I'm losing a bit in like aerodynamics, I think the increase in power massively makes up for it. And if anything, it's going to allow me to run better, definitely not any worse, because it's not as aggressive. So I think that, you know, it's almost going against what everyone's doing, where they're going like more aero. I was like looking, how can I lose minimal amounts, but increase my power as much as possible? So it was kind of against the grain, but I feel like that will make a big difference going forward. And then also with the bike training, leading them to races, not doing too much. Like, I've looked at a lot of the races where I did well at and the lead into them, and I think I was doing a bit too much going into the races and not tapering as much as what I probably should have in the past, because I think you see so much now with what everyone's doing in training and stuff like that, and it's easy to get to think, oh, well, they're doing that, so if I do this, it's not too bad. But everyone's different, and some people might need to do 15, 20 hours a week leading into it in race week. But I think, to be honest, looking at what I've done before, 5-6 hours of cycling race week is enough for me, you know. And at the end of the day, who cares what you do in training? It's all about how you perform on race day. You know, if someone said to me, do you want to do 20 hours of training race week, but then do a shit race? Or do you want to do like nothing in race week and have a great race? You'd obviously hands down pick the great race, wouldn't you? You know, so I think like, and I really feel like I noticed that a lot, because my wife was saying, like, Laura, in the lead up to races used to be like hating the taper because you'd have so much energy and you'd want to be training, but you know, and then on race day, obviously had so much energy. Whereas I feel like I was doing too much. I wasn't really looking forward to it like that. It's probably because I was a bit overly tired going into the races, you know, so I didn't have all the pent-up energy because I was doing more training, and then obviously not really, really fresh, which you want to be going into races so you can like get everything out. So I definitely feel like I was overdoing it a bit going into the races. And then the training, I think I just needed a really good solid winter training, like, as well, in terms of for the cycling, you know, so gradually building up from September, October, which is what I did in 2021 getting into the 2022 season. Like, I raced Chattanooga, I think, at the end of September, October, maybe start of October. And then my aim was to be in top condition for May, when it was going to be the World Champs in St. George. So I was training to get a really good, solid winter in. So it was starting off with the pure basics, like 2:15 minutes, like just had tempo on the bike. But then because I had so much time, I could gradually increase it without overdoing it because I was running out of time. So I was able to then handle the training and recover from it really well. But yeah, no, I think, I've got a whole winter. I've got like enough time now, so I can gradually build the sessions up and don't have to like rush it too much, because I feel like sometimes in the past, you might have raced like late on and then you try and race early, that you haven't got as much time. So you kind of like have to jump into the training like a bit too much. I mean, I don't know how long before Abu Dhabi you decided to do it, but you might have felt a bit like that because you didn't have as much time as what you ideally hoped. You would like to have done a bit more of a progressive field, you know, like done some like 10 milers at like target race pace, 12 milers, you know, 13, gradually build the volume up. But when you know you've got a marathon in 6 to 8 weeks, it's almost like you have to miss some of the basics that you would do because you want to go in there with the bigger sessions, because you haven't got the time, have you? Whereas obviously if you had like 4 or 5 months and you know, before you knew you were definitely doing a marathon, like say if you got into London now, your training would probably look a hell of a lot different than what it would like the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks getting into London than what it would have done going into Abu Dhabi, because you would have been able to build up a much bigger base. You'd handled bigger training, and you'd be a lot more prepared. But you can't do anything about that, can you? If you haven't got the time to do it, there's nothing you can do. You kind of have to take a bit of risk. So that's one thing that I would change as well. Like, well, I am changing, like, because I've got the time now, because I had some time off in like August, and even when I raced Chattanooga, it was always like with the aim of being in top form for next year. So not rushing things to be in good form for Chattanooga. It was like, I'll do it, and wherever I am. But this is going to be the start of like the 2025 season, if you know what I mean. And I wasn't going to compromise next year, like rushing some big training to do it. It was so in one respect, it was actually quite good that I didn't actually lose massive amounts of time to some of the guys, because I know where I am now and I'm way fitter than what I was in Chattanooga. And that's just in the build up to next season. So that's quite promising. And then the run training, and I did stop doing some longer runs, even though I wasn't really doing that longer run. And I feel like that massively negatively impacted my marathons, even though they weren't that long. I think I was only running like 22, 21K. So then I added them back in like towards like the middle to end of last year. And that definitely felt like it really helped me in the marathon, like in the Ironman, even though I was doing decent volume. And then I've upped my volume now to quite a decent amount running, but also keeping in a longer run. And whether or not that will make a big difference, I don't really know, because I haven't really done consistently decent volume. But I'm not doing loads of like really like harder stuff, you know what I mean? Like at the moment, like 330K pace or above, it's like getting a lot more volume in. But 2 really good sessions, 1 speed work, 1 tempo threshold. And then obviously when we get closer to the races, it could be a bit more specific, and I might do a run off, like a harder run off of the bike on a Sunday as well. But at the moment, just getting some big volume in running, but over a consistently long period, because I'm thinking that this will set me up really well for the 2025 season. If I can get that in over the winter, instead of like doing less volume, say like 60, 70K, but more intensity, I think it's better to be going for like 90K, 2 good sessions. And I can see it in my times I'm improving, and it feels like it's making me a lot more efficient, because I can see my heart rates at certain speeds are a lot better. So that's really promising. So that's one thing what I'm doing for the running. But as to whether or not that will be better or not is to be seen, because I haven't done that like a really long block where I've kind of like up the run training.
Joe, when you're kind of looking at your performances, like at the end of the year, say, or at the end of the season, do you look at everything like quite objectively in terms of numbers? Like, are you looking at like swim paces you've done for certain sets, bike power for certain workouts, run paces again for certain workouts maybe, and then are you kind of comparing that to previous seasons? Is that how you kind of, I guess, where you've been at during the year?
Yeah, I would do that, as well. And one thing that I did notice from this year, mainly this year, was that although I was in my best 10K and half marathon shape and running the best I've ever done for 70.3s off the bike, my Ironmans weren't running as well. And I wasn't doing the long runs that I was doing. So that just showed me that worked for 70.3s, and I did get my threshold definitely a lot higher, but it wasn't translating to the Ironman. So it showed me that there's actually specifics to running at a bit of a slower pace and, 330 to 340K pace, which is what you might do in an Ironman. Obviously, you still need the top end. You're getting efficient at them Ironman paces. And I was doing wouldn't say I was doing a bit more volume. It was just mainly a longer run, but it definitely wasn't translating into the Ironman, but it was definitely translating into the 70.3, which is quite strange. I was running 3-4 minutes faster over 70.3, but then I was running 10 minutes slower over an Ironman.
So I've got a question for you then, mate. Would you say, like kind of looking back on it, do you think deep down you knew that? Did you feel less Ironman run fit, for example, than you had in previous years, even though, like you said, you were performing better over the shorter distance?
No, in training, I was doing really well, and it was going really well off the bikes at them paces. So it was strange, because I was going into the races expecting to run really well, because whenever I'd run it like 330, 320s, it felt really good, but maybe that was a bit too quick, but then even when I was running at 345s, it just felt really, really comfortable. I mean, part of that could be the biking, you could say. Was I left bike fit, and then I wasn't able to run so well, and that potentially could have been a factor. Maybe it wasn't the fact that I wasn't as efficient at Ironman pace. It might have been the fact that the bike was taking more out of me. I was in a more aggressive position. Was that affecting how I was able to run? And maybe that could have been it, because in the past I think I might have been a bit stronger on the bike, and then I was able to run really well over the Ironman just because I was getting off the bike and feeling really fresh. So it could potentially be that. It's just very hard to know exactly what the cause is, but the results are I was running slower over the Ironman distance despite being in better 70.3 shape, and that could either have been I wasn't as efficient and doing as much at like Ironman race pace, or it could have been the fact that I wasn't as strong on the bike as I had been in previous years, and then I wasn't able to run to my potential, if you know what I mean.
So sitting here now, Joe, in what are we, 23rd of December, and having this chat, if you could go back to the start of the year and you could change one thing in your training, what would you do?
Definitely the swimming, more open water swimming, 100%, because I mean, I was losing 8 minutes in some Ironmans, and when people would see me swimming in the pool who I was racing against, they were like, I can't believe how much quicker you are in the pool and how bad you're swimming in the races, because the times I was hitting were decent. You know, I remember doing one set where I did 18 100s off 130, and I was able to hit 112 average. But then I would get into an Ironman and I was losing 8 minutes. And it was like, that doesn't add up. They're actually decent times, you know. Well, I know from years, I've been doing this for 10 years, you know, and I think the worst I'd ever lost in the swim before was like 6.5, 7 minutes. And I was swimming bad then, you know, like 8 seconds 100 slower in training, 7 seconds 100. So in fact, I'm swimming my best. And I don't think the top end of the swim has got any quicker in Ironman racing. There's more people that are able to swim in that front pack, but the faster swimmers aren't any quicker than what they've been the whole time we've been doing it. I think you'd probably say that, wouldn't you, Nick? There's always been anomalies, like, you know, the Dylan McNeish's that we've had in the triathlons and people like that that are swimming really quick paces. The thing is, now you've got more people that are able to swim with those guys, not actually set the pace. Because most people are happy, aren't they? Once they start off in the swimming, they achieve they're in the front pack, they're happy to sit in and conserve energy and let someone else lead it, you know. So the fact that and for instance, like going into Texas this year, I was 8 minutes down, but I was swimming well in training. The year before, I was 3 minutes off the leader, which was Andy Horsfall Turner out the water. He's a very quick swimmer, you know, like he's one of the top guys. And we're actually working with him now, so that's awesome. Yeah. And then I looked at the results on that, and a lot of the people that year swam quicker than what they did the year when I did it, but I was 5-6 minutes slower than what I was the previous year. So I would say deficit swim, because that would have put me in a much better position. And it would have set you up. I mean, you can't win the race from the swim, but you can definitely lose it. And I was losing it. You know, 8 minutes is just too much to try and get to win the races. I mean, obviously, you can still you can battle for the strap, but really, I should have been 3 to 4 minutes down, riding with some decent cyclists, you know, and potentially able to work with them to bridge up or to limit our losses or to hold the gap. And obviously, if you start the run 2-3 minutes down in an Ironman, it's everything to play for, isn't it? In the marathon, you know, you can still win the races, you can still get on the podium. You know, you've got a lot of cards, whereas when you get off the bike and you're 8 minutes down, there's like, say, 10 other people in front of you. If 3 of them run well, then you're not even going to get on the podium.
Can I ask, Joe, like this season, when you've come out of the water and say the first time that you've got the splits and you've found out that you're that far back early on in the race, can I ask what goes through your head? Are you like, it's okay, I can make up that? Or are you just like, shit? Like, what? What do you think
I was like, the second one, I can't really say it now because like Arabella's right off me, but like, yeah, it was definitely the second option. And I was like, oh my God, because I actually felt like I was swimming quite well in that race. That was the weird thing. I think I was a bit ill before that, which, you know, because I caught something just before the race, but which I wasn't able to finish the race. But I actually felt like I was swimming quite fast. So when I got off, I was expecting to be 4 minutes down, something like that. So when they said 8, I was like, oh my God, like, you know, this is so far. But I was kind of like, just give it your best on the bike. You know, it's not like you're going to be able to, you haven't really got any options, you know, because if you get out of the water 2 minutes down, 3 minutes, you can go really hard and try and close that gap quick. If you want, and then potentially sit in and save energy, but you can't close an 8 minute gap. There's nothing you can do. So then it became a thing of, right, this is just a time trial now, bike and run. So you've just got to ride the best you can to get to the finish line in as quick as possible time. That was what I thought. It wasn't like I had any options to play any tactics apart from just spreading the effort out gradually. Yeah, this is very disappointing, to be honest. I'm not going to lie. Same with your Lake Placid, I was 8 minutes down. It was it was pretty disheartening because obviously I was seeing how well I was swimming in the pool, you know. So if I was swimming terrible in the pool, like for instance, I remember in 2021, I was swimming horrifically in the pool. I was in front row and I wasn't even swimming over 300 meters at a time whenever I swam in the pool because I was so bad. And it felt so hard. But I was doing some open water swimming. And then I went down to race Niche Ironman in June and I made the front pack. And I was swimming so bad, honestly, incredibly bad. And then same happened in Switzerland that year. I was no, actually, that June one. Sorry, it was 2022. That one when I made that in Nice. But then the year before in Switzerland, 2021, I was swimming okay, not great, but I was doing a lot of open water swimming, and I managed to make the front pack there again. And it was like it almost came out of thin air because I didn't feel like I was swimming that great in the pool. But I was swimming well in a wetsuit. I remember trying the wetsuit out and swimming, doing a long course session with the wetsuit on before the race and hit some really good times. And I was massively surprised. I was like, oh, that was better than I was expecting. You know, I kind of wasn't expecting to hit the end times. And then on race day, got right on Carl Buckham's feet. He took me to the front to the first boy in first or second position, something like that, sat in the group. And that was so comfortable once it settled down. And I was like, and I was even thinking to myself, should I put a surgeon to lead this race out? You know, I'm never going to lead the swim out on an Ironman again. This could be my opportunity. But I thought, no, you know, conserve the energy. But it's bizarre. You know, that's the thing, you know. Sometimes I've been swimming terribly in the pool leading up to the races and then done it. But these ones were very disheartening because I was doing so well in the pool. I was expecting to have great swim, but it just didn't turn out like that.
So then, as a self-coached athlete, Joe, how do you kind of look at planning your season ahead in terms of your training? Are you someone who like maps out what you're going to do for an entire Ironman build, for example? Or would you kind of take it more like a week by week or a fortnightly basis and kind of keep your kind of plan quite, I guess, like flexible?
I take it pretty much week by week, but I know what I'm going to do. Like I want to progress the sessions. I know exactly where I want to be, like what my tempo should be. I know what kind of heart rates and how they feel. So when I'm doing the efforts, I kind of just see how I feel on the day and go by perceived effort. But I know over time I want to build the sessions up. For instance, like I started off the winter doing 2 15-minute efforts at tempo, whereas yesterday, and then I increased the tempos, like, and I was up to like 40 minutes. And for then this week, I did 2 by 20 minutes at threshold. So, and the threshold was like 60 watts higher than I started doing the tempos out of 215. But obviously I've been able to absorb that training because I've just gradually built it up. And obviously if I'm doing threshold sessions then the total volume will go down, you know, intensity in the session because I'm doing more intensity, but like, than what I am in the tempo. For instance, like if I'm doing like 40 and a 30-minute tempo, I'm getting an hour, I'm getting 70 minutes in on over intensity. But obviously, if I'm doing threshold recs instead of tempo, I'm not going to do 70 minutes of threshold because it's just way more intense. So 220s was probably taking as much out of me, you know, with how hard it felt. But you can't just go into 2 by 20 minutes at threshold, I don't think, when you first start off with winter training. It's too big a session, you know. You need to be fit enough to be able to absorb the training, don't you, without it compromising the rest of the week. So I kind of have an idea of where I want to go. And then I've been training like 3 weeks on, 1 week of it easier. On the easier week, I use that to recover and just tick over. The intensity comes down quite a bit. You know, I won't do as many intense sessions and I'll knock the volume down probably by like no more than 50% of what I was doing. And then the next 3 weeks, I'll either, if I'm doing like working on tempo still, the sessions will get a bit longer. So say I finished at 225 minutes the week before the week off, then it might be 225s in the first week back, but then the next week it might be a 30, 25 or 230s, you know, something like that. But if I do have a day and feeling really tired, then I might think I'll do 415s, you know, just mentally because it's a bit easier, but then I'm still getting 60 minutes of tempo in, which is what I want it to be. It's not as hard as 230, but if I'm feeling a bit fatigued, you know, because it could be a bad night's sleep or something like that, then I'll adapt it a little bit.
Oh,
I love that. I think that's so helpful for, I know that makes for listeners who I'm sure most of them are self-conscious, and who can then relate that to their own training and realise that, okay, maybe you have a certain session plan, for example, that you wanted to execute, but if for whatever reason you're not maybe feeling it on that day, you can still adjust that session and change it up a little bit to still get the stimulus that you're looking for, but maybe not at the recovery cost that you might have otherwise experienced.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you, Joe, for that insight. Just before we finish off this podcast, our last one for the year, I wanted to ask your thoughts on who you see coming through the ranks, or any predictions of what you have for either the T100 or the Pro Ironman series next year. Do you have any? Obviously, besides yourself, because you're out there. Maybe the Pro Series. Joe, all the way. Besides yourself, do you have any thoughts on anyone you want to see come through?
Well, for the T100, I'd like to see Vincent Louis, Hayden Wild race it. And I would also like to see some people around the same. I saw Sam Long's accepted his contract. I'd like to see some people that swim around the same pace as him, but are strong cyclists. People like Trevor Foley, Lionel Sanders, do some of them, because I think that would make it quite exciting. Because if Sam had a bit of a group to ride in, and some strong cyclists, they could ride themselves back into contention. And I think that would make it a lot more entertaining to watch, because at the moment he's kind of like getting out of the water 4 minutes down in no man's land, totally solo by himself. So I think that would be great. Also with the Ironman series, I've heard the Norwegians are going to do it, Christian and Gustav, so that would be awesome to see them back racing. Hopefully Gustav's like back to his old self, because I think he's had a rough couple of years. And I think Leon Chevalier is going to give that a go, so that would be really good. Looks like it's going to be a strong year with all those guys in it. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm looking forward to watching the T100 with some of like the strong swim bikers like Martin Van Riel again, Jelle Gaines, doing it. And I just think that best coverage, what those guys do, and the commentary for them races just makes it so much more entertaining. Like the Ironman races, I think, have the potential. They get really good feels sometimes, but the commentary, watching the coverage is a bit painful, isn't it? For it, that's what kind of hits a blow. Whereas the T100, I just find that they've nailed the coverage really. You know, the commentary a lot better, the build up, the way they film it. So I enjoy watching that a lot more. I just wish that the T100 broadcast was on the Ironman races, because I think that they could be really good if they could work their magic on that. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, I follow everything. I like watching all the races. I watch all the 7.3s, the Ironmans, T100, but I do get excited for the T100 a bit more, I've got to say.
I think that there's also going to be, like, post-Olympic year, a lot of Olympic distance athletes stepping up to 73s and T100s. Like, I think, you know, if they get the invite, obviously some wildcard entries. Like, we've just started working with Nicole Vanderkay, and she's a 2 times Olympian from New Zealand. Like, I think she'll be amazing. She's got a new coach, same as Jane's coach. Like, I think could really come through really well. Like Natalie Van Kovden, who's just obviously represented Australia in the Olympics. Like, she's announced, you know, she's going to really focus on more on 73 stuff too. Like, I think maybe post-Olympic year, a lot of people who know that was their last Olympics now have gone. There's better prize money. There's so many options. Like, I think maybe a lot of athletes might not burn out this year as well. Like, there were so many athletes who were going to come to Ironman WA, like 73, who pulled out, didn't they? Because it was end of the year. It's like everyone was burnt out. And same with 73 Worlds, like, people were just burnt out. So I wonder how people are going to pick their races. And yeah, I think it's going to be like really exciting. I'm really excited to watch it. I think the women's is going to be amazing.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, I think it's going to be really exciting, yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Joe, I know you're busy now. We've got our Christmas stuff to do, so we'll let you go. But thank you everyone for tuning into the podcast this year. Make sure you jump on the Blair out for your off season, kickstart your 2025 right, and we'll see you all in the new year.